That's definitely something you don't see every day. A pre-World War II sound cannon.
Kummersdorf Proving Grounds is 25 kilometers outside of Berlin. Ever since 1871, when the Kaiser moved the German and Prussian militaries there, they have tested and trained and developed new weapons, fortress constructions, armaments, tanks, guns, rockets, missiles, and other things. It is a vast area, obviously off limits today, and full of artifacts and remains from wars and various experiments. Many of them to this day are still unknown, but some we know more of, like the von Braun and Dornberger's rocket stands. The small one and the bigger ones are still standing. Of course, Tino's nuclear reactor, you all remember, sits here too, among more rocket test buildings. And then there is one lone construction for the sound cannon that I'm going to take you to, or rather, we. After the Second World War, the Russian army moved into Kummersdorf and into all of the old buildings here and did their own training and testing until the early 1990s. So here are remnants of 4 different eras of militaries.
Idag drar vi 3 på vikingetokt här I skogen. Oh, I'm sorry. I travel so much I forgot what country we're in. We're out here looking for something really special. First of all, it's a real special day because for the first time, Tom and Thomas get to meet. We actually do things together. We're looking for something World War II, very special project. You judge when we get there. But still, it's a place where the space program started here. The Chinese will do it.
Germany on it.
Oh, good.
Of course, the rocket engine test stands are always interesting to see, and their viewing ports, cable ducts, technical attachments. Here, at the smallest of the test stands, also N-stuff was tested and worked with. This part of the facility was partially blown up by the Germans before the Russians arrived, but it's still interesting to see. And as we are navigating our way to the sound cannon, we pass both the small and large rocket test stand, so of course I'm going to show you again what they look like.
One of them, they have many.
Look over the windows. You have little details, and that didn't seem very Russian. So that's an old Kummersdorf building. Looks much better.
water tower. I was there up 10 years ago.
Okay. There's a lot of these. Wo ist hier Building? Irgendwas ist schon existiert Platz, oder? Ist da ein Haus hier? Panzerplatz. Isn't it? This is not. Yeah. Favorite mosquito? Or a new spider friend?
In 1929, the German army began research into the use of rocket propulsion for military purposes, and the responsibility for rocket development was assigned to the ballistics branch of the Army Weapons Department under Walter Dornberger, a former artillery officer. He joined the branch in 1930. They built a test stand for liquid-propelled rockets, Experimental Station West, here at Kummersdorf, December 32. Dornberger, Walter Reidel, Werner von Braun tested their first rocket motors on 21 December using liquid oxygen and a 75% ethyl alcohol. Arthur Rudolph also joined the organization, and work started on the Accredited 1, A1, which was to be a complete missile. But the development moved on to the A2. They used a wind tunnel as well to determine stable flight configurations, starting from 0 through to supersonic speed. In December 1934, the first two A2s were successfully launched from the North Sea island of Borkum. The first casualties in the rocket development occurred in March 1934, when Dr. Wamke and two assistants were killed and another assistant injured. A propellant fuel tank exploded while experimenting with a mixture of 90% hydrogen peroxide and alcohol before combusting. In 1935, work commenced on using rocket motors to power aircraft. In 1936, a rocket motor was installed in the tail of a Heinkel HE-112 with 90 seconds worth of fuel. Flight tests, also supported by the Luftwaffe, began on 3rd June 1937. The Heinkel flown was test pilot Erich Vasic, propelled by rocket power alone. Now, despite the wheels up landing and having the fuselage on fire due to an unpredicted area of low aerodynamic pressure drawing alcohol fumes back onto the airframe when it ignited, it all went quite well. In May 1937, Dornberger and most of his staff moved to the new rocket test center at Peenemunde. Dr. Thiel and his staff followed in the summer of 1940. Test Stand 5 at Peenemunde was an exact replica to this large one at Kummersdorf. Hitler visited Kummersdorf West in March 1939, accompanied by Walter Brauchitsch. witnessing the test firing of the 650 and 2200-pound thrust rocket motors, and who viewed the components of the A3 and the A5. He also inquired how long it would take to develop it into the A4. In 1938, Kummersdorf was also used for nuclear research, as you know.
Das Ganze runter.
Ja, ist natürlich jetzt bei dem Wind.
It's a little building, I never noticed that. With a technical tunnel running to it. It's a really fat steel plate that used to be here as a shield, I'm guessing, into this little... You could have had a fuel or some sort of something in here that would feed to it. But that's a hell of a plate.
Yes.
That some Dutch scrapper stole. It's always the Dutch. And here's a steering wheel to... must be Russian. The premier three nutjob historians. The 3 T's. There's a t-shirt. Somebody's going to come up with a t-shirt with 3 T's. All right, let's go do stuff. Nah, it's just trees making a lot of sound. It's not unusual. And considering how flat the proving grounds generally is, you know this is not just a big fat mold. And it's also not a Viking burial ground. So, there's an artillery goal. Or a puck or something. Sit way down there. Yeah, a lot of this is cement that's come down. It's full of shells, certainly. See, weatherproofing, so there was a roof here. Way down there, a long time ago. Never knew I should have married a botanist. There's the easy access to the side. It also tells me that these are quite long. And then there's a thing there. Is this the special thing we're looking for?
I have no idea. Make no sense.
I think this is another... I think the word shell catcher is appropriate. Oh.
Another one that's a ball missing.
Yeah. Huh. I'm almost thinking anti-tank weapon range. Oh, buddy. From before the war. An original bathroom tile. That could also be Russian time. They had a thing for those colors, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, the Russians would just drop everything and leave. Literally. Okay. That's it? Yeah, that's Russian, isn't it? Yeah, it is. That looks like Russian, but it could also be... What the hell is this? That thing in the middle? Is this a mock fighting position, maybe? I mean, they built test forts here, a lot of them, to blow up. Some of them with steel domes and everything. But this looks...
Right, so here it is, the sound cannon, or Schallkanonen.
That's definitely something you don't see every day. A pre-World War II sound cannon. I mean, we can certainly say it's a special project. It is a project, and it really is very special. Is this a crazy idea? Was it a brilliant idea? Or is it one of the categories of what the hell were you thinking? This is it, yes. Holy crap. Made of brick? I would never thought a brick would hold up.
There was also a steel shield inside.
So, okay, so that would make sense. So the bricks would just hold the shield. So what was the general concept? What was the idea exactly? I'm to place
Ich kann es auf Deutsch erklären.
Okay. Ja. Die Kamerafilm.
Die Kamera.
Is it overexposed?
No, I think there was nothing on it.
What's the idea here?
Vor diesem Schild, da ist in der Mitte ein Rohr, war eine große Röhre und in dieser Röhre wurden Knallgasexplosionen fanden da statt in Reihe. 15 Explosionen pro Sekunde. Und das ist extrem laut und dieser Schallstrahl kam aus der Röhre in diesen Spiegel und der Spiegel hat es dann in die Richtung geworfen. Und die Idee war, Soldaten, die in 400 Meter bis zu 400 Meter Entfernung sind, praktisch psychisch zu blenden. Die waren zu nichts mehr in der Lage. Das war so laut, das war so mörderisch, die konnten dann überhaupt nichts mehr machen. Und diese Frequenz, 15 Explosionen pro Sekunde, wirkten auch, dass die Körperzellen in Schwingung geraten. Das heißt, die Soldaten hätten dann, wenn das alles funktioniert hätte, schwerwiegende organische Schäden bekommen und wären gestorben nach einer gewissen Zeit.
So before, from the mid-1930s, based on experiences from the First World War, on how pressure waves have made soldiers incapable of working or functioning, they started testing and working on this, which was a tube that projected backwards that had 15 separate explosions that would be set off almost simultaneously in a directional wave, and the vibrations of this would make people not function. Pretty much like have seen some of the crowd control doing today. That was a lampshade or a plate? This is really neat. Ooh, it's not doing well.
No.
It has better days, but a bit of radio. See, that's what I like. You find these things and you leave them here for other people to see, because now there's something for everybody in this area that is obviously completely accessible for everyone. So are we back to this being a brilliant Wunderweapon? Well, probably not. The problem is having a series of explosions to set in a directional wave. Well, it worked, yes, but how are you going to transport this to a potential battlefield? Now, I could see you could use this for close perimeter defense, although, well, it certainly wouldn't make it wake up the neighbors. But if you're going to fire a shell and a burst of an MG and you sort of...
On a ship it could work.
On a ship it could... Would it, or would the water take the pressure?
Now, before we go into details, how much ever I can, given what little we know, I want to give you the background. Beginning during the First World War, the effects of explosives were studied far more than before. One was the effect on the human body from the proximity of explosions. and the damage from just the blast wave alone, leading to research into infrasound and low tones which can damage the human body, and if directed, be used as a weapon, leading us here, where after World War I and into World War II, several of these were constructed. We know that because several parabolic discs were found, but the other site have still not been found. The sonic cannon, created in the 1940s by Dr. Richard Wallenschek, it was formed by two parabolic reflectors connected by several tubes that formed a firing chamber. Through the tubes, a mixture of oxygen and methane then was detonated cylindrical. Now, there's no drawings, and only one photo exists, so we are left to quite a bit of guessing. Two concepts formed, one of the single parabolic disc, and one other of the two with one inversed to multiply the effect. Obviously, a lot of parts here are missing. But to me, if there was a second disc facing the first, I theorize that a structure of some sort would have to be constructed in order to house it, fix it in place. Maybe. Now, the sound waves produced by a series of explosives, then by reflection generated a shock wave of so great intensity that it created a sonic beam of enormous amplitude. The sharp note sounded exceeded 1,000 millibars at almost 50 meters. At this distance, a half a minute of exposure would kill anyone within range, and 250 meters would continue to produce unbearable pain. Some documents claim it was tested on animals. 800 and 1,500 impulses per second was recorded. Richard Wallenschek was also in Tyrol, where he tried to build another sound cannon using two parabolic reflectors connected to a combustion chamber in which methane and oxygen was injected through a coaxial nozzle, causing detonation. This should cause the pressure of 1,000 millibar 60 meters in front of the weapon, and it was expected that a man exposed to this for 30 to 40 seconds would die, and at 300 meters would be rendered non-combat able for a prolonged time. An interesting note is that at the same location in Tyrol, Dr. Sippermeyer was working on his air cannon, although he claims after the war to have had no correlation or work relation with the two. An interesting question would, of course, be the deployment, as to where and how a 3-meter tall parabolic weapon to be used within 300 meters of an enemy willing to stand still for some 30 seconds without actually firing back. And the idea, however, is not that silly. The U.S. military and law enforcement agencies are still working on perfecting such a weapon, although not with explosives, but using electronics as opposed to explosives and gas. The military have both a working sonic USW and a heat ray weapon, ADS, both non-lethal geared towards crowd control. One ADS was deployed to Afghanistan but never used there. The ADS works by firing a high-powered 100 kilowatt output power beam of 95 gigahertz at a target which corresponds to a wavelength of 3.2 millimeters.
So this fell down here.
Wo ich das erste Mal hier war das noch ein besserer Fall. Das erste Mal war ich vor 15 Jahren hier oder so.
War das immer noch da? Oder?
Ja.
Da
Aber
war-
da ist von abgebrochen. Das war besser. Das müssen wir eigentlich restaurieren. Ein bisschen. Jetzt machen wir mal die Kettensäge mit. Habt ihr schön gemacht.
very simple. You have to set the 15 explosions off at the right sequence, almost at the right time. And find the right shape of the cone to reflect the maximum amount of the pressure wave forward. I'm sure you would experiment with how much the arc of the cone should be. There'd be a lot of things that would need to be taken into consideration. And generally behind it, it's just like when you stand right on the other side of a jet, you don't really hear much. I wonder if there's any kind of test targets or anything set up here.
Get something.
I need that for my Harley. pull the belt. I like it. What the hell is it? I don't know what it is, but
It looks like
is there a serial number on there? Amazing.
HD.
Of course. I mean, the amount of crap you find out in this forest.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there behind.
So yeah, I feel we should run through it. I think he's right. These were the labs. There's a lot of labs and technicians and engineers out here, but also, what the hell kind of sound was that? Thought this was a spider thing or something. Is it shell? It could be.
Looks like this.
It's not brass, it's a metal shell if it is. That would be... And what the hell hacked away at this? That's not a natural decay. Here's another thing. Oh. There's a lot of stuff here. But with all the test stands, there's also all the labs and technical stuff, and the scientist people and all those nerds who are around here. One thing is working with and testing the various fuels. Spider? Huh? Thorns? Oh. Well, I guess you didn't need that testicle anyway.
But for that it's cool.
Is that a hook?
It looks like a hook.
Looks like a roof hook. Looks like the kind of thing you hang in the roof to move a cannon. Speaking of things people threw, look at this. All these end caps. Are these gas mask caps? I think they are. All these identical plastic caps. I don't know. Could also be just crap for engines, motors. But is that a lamp sitting over there? Certainly would have been ventilation in these if this is what they were doing. What is this?
Oh, the rock stuff here.
Is it a carburetor cover
Looks like
from a car?
turbocharger.
Damn Fiats, they just rust, don't they? shade. There's so much stuff here. Yeah, they leave their shoes everywhere. Is that a hot mail?
Ja, das ist like a pattern hoodie.
That's a boot.
Yeah, this was a boot too.
Yeah.
Now it's a shoe boot mode. I found before.
Yeah, that.
That's nice.
Technical buildings. Got stone in it.
Ja, es war ein Hochbunker.
Really? Nie ein Winkelton oder so.
Großer rechteckiger
War Erste Weltkrieg. Erste Weltkrieg, though. There's no rebar in it. So that makes sense. And bricks. A collapsed bunker. A used to bunker. Used a lot of stone and cement. We basically have remnants out here from the time of the Kaiser. Really are the strangest things out here. Hey, Panzerhalle. I think this is something. All your gasoline and stuff, right? So the soldiers can't go steal the gasoline, which they're going to steal anyway.
So the ideas born here have slowly been worked on and developed until the tech caught up. And of course, Raytheon have now a working ray today. Our trips to Kummersdorf will continue. There's much more to see here. Certainly not all of it has yet even been found. And the trips to and from is always fascinating as we cross through so many different levels of time and history.
My name is Tino Struckmann. I run Lost Battlefields. Every year I travel around the world to try to bring you to all the most interesting historical military locations from modern wars and the World War II special projects, battlefields, forts, fortresses, and tunnels, everything else. Things you may not be able to see or go to yourselves. Please join me on Patreon or join Lost Battlefields through the website so you get access to all my files and my notes. It really does help, and like, follow, share here on the channel if you can. That helps too.